Lewis Hamilton's radio crackled with frustration at Spa. "I can't attack because I've got no fuel, mate." Not just a complaint, but a coded confession that would expose a power struggle brewing inside Ferrari's garage. What happened in the 48 hours after that transmission has quietly begun to reshape one of Formula One's most iconic teams. And the driver at the center of it all? He's no longer just adapting to Ferrari, he's starting to control it. But before we reveal how a single underfueled car became the catalyst for Hamilton's growing influence, we need to understand what was really happening behind those garage doors at Spa. Hamilton's Belgian Grand Prix weekend looked doomed from the start. According to sources familiar with the situation, 2 early exits from qualifying painted the picture of a driver fighting with a car he simply didn't trust. The SF25 looked nervous, unbalanced, and unpredictable. Just another disappointing chapter in what had been a turbulent first season in red. The real chaos began when Ferrari made a desperate gamble. As reported in detailed race analysis, they tore up Parc Fermé rules, switching to a high downforce wing and installing a fresh hybrid unit. But here's where it gets interesting. They also made another change that wouldn't become clear until mid-race. From 17th on the grid, Hamilton carved through the field in wet conditions, slicing through 5 cars at the start. But then, just before halfway through the race, his race engineer Riccardo Adami delivered the message that would change everything. "We still need the lift and coast." Hamilton's response was immediate and telling. "Can I keep pushing or not?" The pause that followed wasn't about data. It was about damage control. "Let's stay where we are," came the reply. What Hamilton revealed after crossing the line 7th would expose not just Ferrari's strategy. Initially, it seemed like typical Ferrari drama. Team boss Fred Vasseur laughed when asked if the performance issues were about the floor or fuel, telling reporters with a smile, "You're clever enough to figure it out." But Hamilton didn't dodge the truth. In his post-race interview with Sky Sports, he was direct. "We underfueled for the wing we had." It seemed like a simple strategic sacrifice. Risk fuel to gain early performance, then manage the consequences. However, sources within Ferrari revealed this wasn't just about strategy. The decision to underfuel had been divisive inside the team. Some engineers pushed for a balanced setup, fearing Spa's long straights would punish the drag from their high downforce wing, but a smaller group, reportedly led by an ex-Mercedes performance strategist, argued Hamilton could only shine if he had front-end grip, even if it meant higher fuel burn. That's where the internal friction started. The decision split the garage, with one source saying there were raised voices and that some didn't want to take the risk on fuel range, but those concerns were overruled just hours before the race. But here's what makes this story really significant. Hamilton's public response to being underfueled wasn't just frustration. It was the opening move in a much larger game. What happened next changed everything. Because behind the scenes, something significant had shifted that weekend. Quietly, without any official announcement, Hamilton had been working with a new performance engineer at Ferrari, someone from his past, a figure he'd known and trusted during his time at Mercedes. The addition of Johannes Hats to Lewis Hamilton's garage might not have made headlines, but within the Ferrari camp, this move marked a subtle shift in how Hamilton's side of the operation was taking shape. Hats, who had previously worked with Porsche and Audi and most recently at AlphaTauri, didn't arrive with fanfare. He simply showed up, slotted in beside race engineer Riccardo Adami, and got to work. For those unfamiliar with how Formula One engineering teams are structured, the role of a performance engineer is crucial. They take everything the car is doing, every vibration, every bit of tire degradation, every data trace, and translate it into feedback that helps the driver go faster. It's one of the most crucial relationships inside a modern F1 garage. And now Hamilton had someone in that role who spoke his language fluently. But here's the real revelation. Hamilton's post-race honesty about the underfuel strategy wasn't just transparency, it was a power play. By confirming the underfuel publicly, he exposed a decision Ferrari couldn't justify without admitting internal disagreement. And that forced a reckoning, because what Ferrari didn't expect was that Lewis would break their golden rule, protect the team at all costs. And once he did, everything started to change. Ferrari operates by one principle above all: public unity, private dissent. Drivers can complain behind closed doors, but public criticism is taboo. So when Hamilton told Sky Sports about the underfuel strategy, it wasn't just a statement. It was a breach. Quiet, calculated, and deliberate. Sources say Riccardo Adami was caught off guard. His hesitation during the radio exchange wasn't about data. It was about internal confusion. The plan had been clear: push early, hold position late, say nothing post-race. But Hamilton knew something the engineers didn't. He knew the cameras were watching, and that moment when he asked, "Can I keep pushing or not?" was both genuine and symbolic, echoing a deeper frustration not just with strategy but with control. The fallout hit Maranello faster than expected. Within hours of the Sky interview airing, meetings were called, not about strategy, but about optics. One senior engineer reportedly called Hamilton's comments a declaration of independence. And here's where the story takes an even more dramatic turn, because Hamilton wasn't finished reshaping Ferrari's approach. Just days after Spa, simulator sessions at Maranello took a sharp turn. A new torque delivery model, one previously shelved, was reintroduced at Hamilton's request. Sources described it as non-standard data injection. Hamilton had brought his old Mercedes simulation feedback structure, metrics Ferrari hadn't prioritized. The most symbolic shift was the pedal trace adjustment, small on paper but significant. Hamilton wanted earlier throttle predictability out of slow corners, something Ferrari's old setup sacrificed for rear stability. The change went live in the simulator 2 days after Spa, quietly. No press release. Meanwhile, Charles Leclerc remained silent, but internally his camp raised concerns that the car's balance was drifting. The problem? The engineers weren't listening the same way anymore. What emerged from Spa wasn't just a better working relationship. It was a fundamental shift in Ferrari's power structure. Hamilton stopped being the student and became the one asking the questions. Suddenly, meetings changed. Engineers began briefing Hamilton earlier, offering options instead of directives. The debriefs turned collaborative. One team insider described it like this: they built the car for Charles's driving style. Now they're realizing Lewis wants different tools and a different voice at the table. It's not war yet, but Ferrari is starting to feel like two teams under one roof. On one side, Hamilton, data-driven, methodical, shaping the car around his vision. On the other, Leclerc, instinctive, aggressive, used to being the reference point. The updated torque curve, the early throttle modulation, the altered brake bias window, all subtly tilted toward Hamilton's preferences. Engineers once focused on Charles's feedback now seemed preoccupied with validating Lewis's corrections. Because what happened at Spa wasn't just about one race. It set the stage for what could become Ferrari's next identity crisis. As we head toward the season's final chapters, the data points to something unprecedented. A 7-time world champion actively reshaping a team's technical philosophy mid-season. The question isn't whether Hamilton will fight at the front. It's how quickly this newly formed partnership can evolve into something formidable. Because the foundations are already there, built not on hope, but on understanding. And once that starts to click in Formula One, everything can change in a heartbeat. Will Ferrari's dual approach work? Or will this power shift create the kind of internal friction that has historically destroyed championship campaigns? The answer may well determine not just Hamilton's legacy in red, but Ferrari's ability to challenge for championships in the years ahead. What we do know is this: the quiet revolution that started with an underfueled car and a frustrated radio message has only just begun. And if Spa taught us anything, it's that Lewis Hamilton isn't just adapting to Ferrari anymore, he's making Ferrari adapt to him.